Ludwig Guttmann was born on July 3, 1899 in Tosteper, Silesia in Germany. He was the only son of a farmer, but as a young boy he dreamed of becoming a doctor. In 1917, all boys in high school in Germany were allowed to take their final examinations early if they agreed to join the German National Emergency Services. Guttmann took advantage of this opportunity, and once he completed high school, he was assigned by the National Emergency Services to the Accident Hospital for Coal Miners, where he was exposed to patients who suffered spinal cord injuries from mining accidents. In 1918, Guttmann began his medical studies in Breslau, Germany. He continued his studies at Würzburg and Friedberg and passed his medical exam in 1924. Then Guttmann met Professor Otfried Forster, a self-taught neurosurgeon. He learned from and worked with Forster for 4 years. In 1928, Guttmann went to Hamburg where he ran a neurological service briefly. In 1933, the National Socialists came to power in Germany and forced Jewish doctors like Guttmann to leave Aryan hospitals. So in 1937, Guttmann was elected the medical director of the Jewish hospital in Breslau. During his time there, he saw the burning of books and witnessed the mistreatment of Jewish people. He also helped some escape to Czechoslovakia. Then, on November 9, 1938, a synagogue near the hospital was burned, and Guttmann provided care to anyone who presented himself for treatment. The next day, the Gestapo forced Guttmann to justify the admission of 64 Jewish patients. Guttmann escorted the Nazis around the hospital, inventing diagnoses for many patients. Most patients were saved, but some, along with a few doctors, were sent to concentration camps. After this, Guttmann took advantage of an opportunity to travel to England, and in 1939 he moved his family there, seeking refuge from the Nazis. At first, Guttmann conducted research, but he quickly became frustrated with the lack of clinical work. In 1944, he accepted an offer to start a center for paraplegics at Stoke Mandeville, near London. At Stoke Mandeville, he set out on a path to help paraplegics escape their personal tragedies. In 1939, the prevailing view was that spinal cord injury was untreatable. 80% of paraplegics died from bladder infection or bed sores within 1 year of their injury. With World War II, there were many injured servicemen, and Guttmann was determined to prevent as many of them as possible from dying. He insisted on routine bladder catheterization for all paraplegics and required that all patients returned every 2 hours in order to prevent bed sores. Guttmann abandoned the use of plaster beds for spinal patients, and he developed a spinal bed frame that used pillows to make patients more comfortable. Guttmann was like a father to many patients, and he was often called Papa. He acquired a pair of parallel bars and utilized activity in addition to massage for muscle rehabilitation. He found jobs for patients such as woodworking, instrument making, and clock and watch repair. Soon, instead of an 80% mortality rate, Guttmann was claiming an 80% survival rate of the spinal cord patients. Medical staff from around the world came to Stoke Mandeville to train under Guttmann. As a result of Guttmann's influence, there are centers named after him in Spain, West Germany, and Israel. In 1947, Guttmann founded a magazine called The Cord. It was written by and for paraplegics. Then in the early 1960s, Guttmann made more contributions to the medical field by forming an International Medical Society of Paraplegia. He also started a new medical journal, Paraplegia, which became an international forum for advancing the diagnosis and treatment of spinal cord injuries. Guttmann was the editor-in-chief until he died from a heart attack in 1980. In retirement, Guttmann continued to act as an advocate for paraplegics, visiting 35 countries to help improve the management of paraplegia. In recognition of his efforts, Guttmann was knighted in 1966, and at the age of 76, he was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society. But Guttmann did far more than alter the treatment and care of paraplegics. In 1944, Guttmann began using simple ball games like polo with patients. These were followed by archery, netball, and table tennis. Guttmann believed that by restoring the activity of mind and body, by instilling self-respect, self-discipline, a competitive spirit, and comradeship, sport developed mental attitudes that were essential for reintegration. Because of this, he organized an archery competition between 16 competitors on the lawn of the hospital in Stoke Mandeville in July 1948 on the opening day of the Olympic Games in London. Guttmann said, "Small as it was a demonstration to the public that competitive sport is not the prerogative of the able-bodied, but that the severely disabled, even those with paraplegia, can become sportsmen and women in their own right." In 1951, the Stoke Mandeville Games, an annual event, had 126 competitors. They became international in 1952, when 4 Dutch paraplegics traveled to the Games. In 1960, the International Stoke Mandeville Games were held in Rome. 400 wheelchair competitors with spinal injuries represented 23 countries. In 1976, the Games expanded to include other disabled athletes, such as the visually impaired and amputees, and were relabeled the Olympiad for the physically disabled. Again, in 1980, the Games were expanded, and in 1985, the International Olympic Committee renamed the Games the Paralympics. In 1989, the International Paralympic Committee was formed to oversee the Paralympics, which had become the second largest sporting event in the world. Today, the Paralympics include a range of disabled athletes, such as athletes with amputations, athletes who are blind or visually impaired, athletes with spinal cord injuries or who use wheelchairs, and athletes who are affected by a range of other disabilities. There are both Winter and Summer Paralympics, and since 1988, these events have been hosted by the same city that hosts the Winter and Summer Olympics. There are now more sports including archery, track and field events, boccia, cycling, equestrian, football, goalball, judo, powerlifting, sailing, shooting, swimming, table tennis, volleyball, wheelchair basketball, wheelchair fencing, wheelchair rugby, wheelchair tennis, alpine skiing, biathlon, cross-country skiing, ice sledge hockey, and wheelchair curling. At the last Summer Paralympics in 2004 in Athens, there are 3,806 athletes. They competed in 19 sports and represented 136 countries. Over 850,000 tickets were sold to viewers, and there were 3,103 media representatives. The Games were broadcast in 25 countries and were watched by a record number of viewers all over the world. Most recently, at the Winter Games in Torino, Italy, there are 474 athletes from 39 countries participating in 5 winter sports. The International Paralympic Committee launched its internet television channel, www.paralympicsport.tv, attracting approximately 40,000 viewers from 105 countries. In 1967, Reader's Digest interviewed Ludwig Guttmann, and he stated, "If I ever did one good thing in my medical career, it was to introduce sport into the treatment and rehabilitation of disabled people." The introduction of sport into the lives of disabled people was a victory in many ways.
Sports for me has been probably the greatest single outlet that I've ever had the pleasure of having access to. After I lost my leg at 11, I thought times were pretty tough and pretty hard. Then I started playing wheelchair basketball, and I got to travel and meet other guys and other people who were also disabled and to play on a competitive outlet, at a competitive level. It was absolutely amazing for me, and it was just a great outlet.
To the base of sports since I got hurt has always been a big, like Eddie said, an outlet to new things. For me, it's going to be going to college, getting a scholarship for wheelchair basketball, and hopefully one day I will get to the Paralympics. It'll be a big influence on my life.
A lot of fun, and it showed me that being in a wheelchair doesn't mean I'm the most surprising thing in the world, and it did a lot to raise my confidence.
For many, paraplegia and disabilities are tragedies. For Sir Ludwig Guttmann, these conditions were merely roadblocks to be overcome. He set out to transform hopeless and helpless spinally paralyzed patients into taxpayers. He believed these patients could look others in the eye and say, "I'm as good as you, and perhaps even better." For to become a taxpayer in my condition, wheelchair-bound for life, I have first had to overcome one of the greatest tragedies of the human condition. Guttmann's vision and determination opened the doors for many disabled persons to triumph in sport and in life. Today, more than 600 million people around the world live with disabilities. These people have the opportunity to participate in sports. There are recreational opportunities, military programs, and international competitions available to athletes with a variety of disabilities and interests. These athletes can be thankful for the vision, dedication, and determination of one man, Ludwig Guttmann. And we should all be thankful for the triumphs of many Paralympians and other disabled athletes who have taught us all the importance of equal opportunity, perseverance, and passion.